tens of thousands of people inside the arena, and reinforced by millions more in cyberspace. However, the man at the center of this storm of emotions, Kim Seok-jin, known globally as the Jin of BTS, stood motionless. He just hurted himself, and for a moment, under the brutal glare of the stage lights, he looked like someone who had never expected to be praised at all. The crowd cheered, but the genie didn't move. His mouth opened slightly, then he lowered his head. Why would someone who has stood on some of the greatest stages in the history of modern music be surprised with admiration? Why does global recognition still feel impossible for someone who has sold out stadium tickets, broken records, and inspired millions? That question now haunts the ARMY. Over the past decade, Jin has often been referred to as BTS's most handsome member in the world. The visual became a meme, his face a symbol. But behind the nickname, behind the grace and stunning stage performance, stands an artist whose real talent is often underappreciated. Her vocal range, lyrical contributions, and performance precision were present from the beginning. However, under the shadow of BTS's phenomenon being so strong, they rarely get the spotlight. Until now, I end what has been called a turning point in his solo career. Jin stood on stage to deliver what should have been a standard farewell line during a concert break. However, he was interrupted, first by a small group of fans near the front, then by waves of chanting from every corner of the stadium. The words were repeated many times. You deserve all this global praise for your talent. It's not a script. It is not part of a fan project. It was spontaneous, natural, and real. Jin is frozen. The people around him, background dancers, staff in the stage area, even fellow performers noticed. He seemed shaken, not by fear or fatigue, but by the sincerity and emotional weight that emanated from those words. Not just applause, not a scream, not admiration for fame, rather recognition of his artistic achievements. A kind of compliment that he has long given to others, but rarely received himself of this magnitude. What happened next was completely unexpected. The genie did not respond with her usual intelligence or grace. He didn't even smile. He simply closed his mouth with his hand, looked at the crowd, and whispered, "Really? It's not a show." It was distrust. This moment was then disseminated on various social media platforms, becoming a trend on every continent. Analysts and fans now call it a historic shift in the way the world views Jin, not just as an idol, but also as an artist. Observers point out that Jin is often somewhere between public admiration and disregard from critics. Although he enjoys immense popularity among the ARMY, music critics have long put aside his artistic contributions in favor of more striking elements. This imbalance is currently being criticized, and it starts not with a review or a nomination, but rather with a line shouted by a fan and sung by thousands of others. There is emotional clarity in these changes. You deserve all this global praise for your talent is not a compliment. That's a correction. Correction for each stage he attended without his technical development being recognized. Corrections to any lyrics he wrote were overshadowed. A correction for every look that people praise but never really listened to. Jin heard it. His body language changed throughout the rest of the show. His voice, which is often technically perfect, now brings a new dimension: vulnerability. During Epiphany, a song that has long been associated with her inner struggle and emotional transparency, her performance was different from her previous performances. He's not holding back. He couldn't hold back the tears. And when the last note sounded, the audience did not scream. They cried with him. That moment, his entire career path changed completely. Jin is no longer just BTS's visual anchor. He is no longer a meme, a comedian, or a figure so subtle. He became who he always was, but few dared to express it: a world-class vocalist, an emotional performer, and a storyteller with incredible honesty. Media outlets across Asia, Europe, and America began to change their headlines. Critics who had previously focused on the group's visual identity now analyzed Jin's vocal structure, his breathing techniques, and his interpretive control. A full video essay on his solo discography was published, examining songs such as Abyss, Tonight, and The Astronaut with renewed reverence. But the real turning point, which no analyst can make up, remains that one sentence: "You deserve all this global praise for your talent." These 11 words redefine an artist's relationship with his audience. Those words broke down the show's fourth wall. Those words reveal not only the vulnerability of the genie, but also our collective failure to celebrate nuance, subtlety, and discipline in a spectacle-obsessed world. Aftershocks are still being felt. The Music Academy has contacted its management for a masterclass. Vocal coaches use the genie technique in teaching materials. And quietly, without fanfare, the number of streams for his little-known solo songs is increasing faster than ever. But for Jin, it's not about numbers. It's about the truth. About finally being seen, heard, and appreciated for the right reasons. And when a few days later, he posted one sentence on social media, "I'll never forget what you said," fans knew exactly what he meant. He's not talking to the world. He spoke directly to the voices in the stadium, to those who break protocol, time, and routine just to convey one message from their heart to him. That message now resonates far beyond a single concert. IT has become a mantra for fans, artists, and even industry professionals. True talent needs no validation, but it's still worth listening to. And finally, after years of underestimated superiority, the genie began to be heard. Maybe he never said it out loud. However, those closest to him describe this change as something liberating. It was as if the pent-up burden he had carried for so many years, always smiling, always polite, had finally been acknowledged. The music world is watching it. Not out of curiosity, but out of respect. And Jin, he's already working on the next thing. Because once you hear the world say, "You deserve all these compliments," the only thing left to do is prove it again. And knowing Jin, he will. The impact of this moment did not stop at the venue gates. It rippled outward, crossing time zones and language barriers, capturing the attention of artists, educators, and fans alike. The phrase, "You deserve all this global praise for your talent," has since become more than a chant. It has evolved into a declaration, spoken on stages, typed into comment sections, printed on fan signs, and etched into the emotional memory of a generation. Within hours of the event, digital platforms saw unprecedented surges in search volume for Jin's name, not associated with visuals or variety shows, but directly linked to terms like vocal analysis, Jin live performance breakdown, and underrated BTS member. The narrative had shifted. The audience was no longer looking for surface-level content. They were searching for substance, and finding it. The reassessment of Jin's artistry has forced even the most rigid industry voices to take a second look. Prominent figures in music journalism, who previously defaulted to predictable commentary on BTS's group dynamics, have now begun to dissect Jin's solo material with precision. Reviews that once glossed over his work are now highlighting his use of breath control in Epiphany, his restrained vibrato in Abyss, and the remarkable emotional layering in The Astronaut. But behind the technical analysis lies something far more valuable. Human validation. IT is not the charts that moved Jin that night. It wasn't the commercial milestones or media attention. It was the collective voice of people who saw past the image, past the brand, and into the depth of an artist who has worked in quiet excellence for over a decade. That is why his reaction mattered. Because for someone so often praised for the exterior, to finally be praised for what is internal, his voice, his sincerity, his evolution, is not just rare. It is transformational, and it changes the way the industry must now approach him. There is a cost to being the quiet one in the spotlight. Jin has carried that burden for years. While others were celebrated for charisma or choreography, Jin refined his craft behind the curtain, rehearsing alone, composing alone, listening more than speaking. That silence was misunderstood by many. But not anymore, not after this. "You deserve all this global praise for your talent" was not just a fan sentiment. It was a moment of justice, a realignment of perception, a forced reckoning with the truth that had long been ignored. Jin is not just 1/7 of a phenomenon. He is an artist in his own right. What comes next is both inevitable and thrilling. Industry insiders are already suggesting that labels, collaborators, and producers previously hesitant to center Jin in solo ventures are now actively pursuing him. Not because of his looks, not because of his fame, but because of something much harder to fake: respect. Even more compelling is how Jin himself will respond to this shift. Those close to him know he is not someone driven by applause. He is meticulous. He waits. He plans. And when he moves with intention. Oh, now the world waits too. Waits to see how he channels this moment. Waits to hear what new stories he chooses to tell. Waits to witness how a man who never asked for the spotlight finally chooses to stand in it. On his own terms, in many ways, that single sentence, spoken in a stadium filled with emotion, has redrawn the boundaries of his identity. Jin is no longer in the shadows of a supergroup. He is stepping forward as an individual, not in rebellion against the team, but in harmony with his truth. And that truth is no longer whispered. It is shouted, sung, written, and immortalized by fans around the world. IT has become clear. There is no going back. Jin cannot and will not be framed again as just the visual or the quiet one. That narrative has collapsed under the weight of sincerity. In its place stands something stronger, something lasting, a legacy, built not from viral moments, but from years of hard, thankless, unseen work, now finally illuminated by a spotlight he never asked for, but absolutely deserves. This is not just the rise of a solo artist. It is a correction of history. A quiet man stepped onto a stage to sing. And when he did, the world stood up and said, "We see you now." And for Jin, that will echo louder than any chart position ever could.